Thanks Nala for having me. Hey Benji. So Marketforce 360 is basically software or tech-enabled solution that enables consumer goods and service companies. So guys who sell insurance, guys who sell FMCG products that you can access at your local corner shop. We help these companies make sure the goods and services get to the last mile consumers. So we provide a mobile-first app that basically field sales agents and retailers are able to use to ensure that they're stocked and all these services are available at the last mile.
I know Tesh is about to make a Kenya and Tanzania joke, but we'll park that on the side for now. It's okay. We gave you Lupita, we gave you Eliud. It's all right. It's all right.
And we're sharing Kilimanjaro.
And I guess we're sharing Kilimanjaro. Yeah, I guess that's the story. First of all, welcome to everybody who's tuning in, wherever in the world you're tuning in. Thank you so much for all the messages. I saw Philadelphia, California, Nairobi, Kampala, Dar es Salaam. Really cool to see everybody. And as Nadia said, a happy New Year. We know the New Year is a little bit different with COVID and what's going on in the world. So we'd love to bring you stories about exciting founders like Tesh, as you got to hear a little bit about what they're doing at Marketforce 360. So Tesh, we'd love to pick up directly from there. Also for everybody tuning in, drop your questions in the questions section. We'll have some chance to ask him anything about his business, how he got started and where he's at for right now. So Tesh, you explained what Marketforce 360 does a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background. Where did this passion for technology start from? Because, I know you grew up and you didn't overnight just all of a sudden start getting interested in tech. Where does it stem from for you?
Yeah, so great question. So I grew up in Nairobi, Kenya. And so I've always been a creative. I actually thought while I was in high school, I thought I was going to study like architecture or something of the sort, or graphic design. But what happened is when I was in Form 2, I went home, and that was in 2008. And like Facebook was just penetrating the African market. And an elder cousin introduced me to Facebook. They helped me set up a Facebook account and a Gmail account. And I was so intrigued by this stuff. I was just like, I couldn't stop thinking about like who invented this stuff, who made this stuff. And that was my first interest in technology. So I got to study a bit more about it. And then I decided I was going to study software engineering. So I ended up studying computer science at the University of Nairobi. And the rest is history.
And so talk to me more about that. So making this Facebook account and then getting into technology. I'm sure there's many people even watching who are watching this right now live or who will be watching this later on. I would love to know, okay, yes, so you started studying technology and computer science, but where did that take you? Like, talk to me from university, where did you go from there?
Yeah, so cool, interesting. So I started my first venture like straight out of high school. So I knew by this time I was gonna study computer science. So I decided prior to joining that, I'm gonna self-study like web design and graphic design. I just start playing around with the laptop. And this brought me to my entrepreneurship journey. So I started a creative design agency called Tesh Tech. So I designed business cards and websites and stuff and started making money, and then went into campus. And I always knew, now at this point, I got interested in entrepreneurship, and I knew, okay, I wanted to build something amazing like Facebook. So what do you do? So started getting the skills that I needed. And then what happened when I was in my second year, I felt like I had enough skills to venture into software development. So a friend of mine at the time who I met in campus and who happens to be my current co-founder called Besongo, we set up a software company together and decided, look, during the day, we're going to hustle for gigs here and there, like web design or anyone who needs an app. We're starting to learn how to code. And so we started a venture, and I would sell. I'd spend a lot of time outside class. So like I think I missed like 70% of my classes. but graduating nonetheless.
Mhm.
And at night, we'll like towards night, we'd have cuts coming the next day, but we'd be busy like delivering jobs for our clients. So that's how
Wow.
we started going to software.
And so fun fact for everybody who doesn't know this, fun fact about Tesh. Tesh made his first million, Kenyan shillings million, is that correct? At the age of 19. Was this during the same business?
Yeah, so this was with a first business, with the
Okay.
graphic design business.
Okay.
So what happened is, yeah, I'd design stuff and we'd bid for
Yeah.
projects. So
Okay.
we'd apply for tenders and we got a job worth $1 million.
Nice.
So that was really exciting.
So basically what Tesh is saying, if y'all met Tesh a couple years ago, he could have put y'all like, those Photoshop people that like put you sitting in a Lamborghini. That's the type of vibe Tesh was selling those photos for a lot of money. So if he could do it, you could do it too. Good times, good times.
Yeah.
Tesh, it's been really impressive and inspiring. So for everybody's context, I met Tesh, I don't know, maybe like 6 to 8 months ago. And I met Tesh when he was getting into Y-Combinator, the accelerator program, which we'll talk about later on in your experience. And so we've got to get to know each other a little bit more. And I had heard of his previous startup, Cloud9, which got acquired recently by Hotels Online. And so it's really cool to see a tech entrepreneur, especially from East Africa, being able to build a company and then it getting acquired within the region. Like, that's really impressive. Could you talk to me about that journey? And, did you ever know that you'd ever build it to a scale that a large organization would want to acquire you or acquire your first business? And talk to us about that process a little bit.
Yeah, so actually we were hoping to build Cloud9 out to be bigger than it ended up being, but I'll tell you the story. So we went out of campus and we knew we always wanted to build like a scalable solution, but like many aspiring entrepreneurs, you don't know yet what is this idea that is gonna blow up. And that you're going to spend a lot of your time working on. And what happened is we graduated and we're looking to travel. So again, my partner and I, we also started that business together and we were buddies. Okay. So we're looking to travel. And so we got this aha moment. It was easy to find hotels. It was easy to find flights. But then when it came to finding experiences to do where you travel, because we don't travel like to go and sleep in your hotel bed, right? You travel to experience. There was no one platform where we could find all the stuff we could be able to do in the coast. So so we decided to launch this marketplace that helps people discover leisure experiences. And while we did that, so this is we did that in 2015. We started in 2015, 2016 thereabout. We ran this business for 3 years. And what happened is we were running a software consulting business. This software consulting business that we started a while back on the side. So this business was like fully bootstrapped. So that means we'd make money in software consulting and invest in marketing this new venture that we thought like we'd make it really big. And this was actually even before like Airbnb experiences. There were a couple of businesses all over the world trying to do the same thing, but we thought this was a massive opportunity. So we ran this business for 3 years or so, and we started a new product, which ended up being Marketforce, and we started it as a client project. And so this was like customer-driven innovation because we got a client to build this bespoke solution for. And that was our introduction to Salesforce automation. We got to realize, so all these sales agents out here, like actually you need like digitization tools. And building this project just opened our eyes and we started making so much revenue out of this business. And we were in a situation where we're torn between, like, we're literally running 2 startups. And we were lucky because we'd be talking to the hotel online co-founders, and they were like super interested in working with us, partnering with us, at some point even investing in Cloud9. And so they offered to buy the business, and this was like it was a hard decision, but we thought we need to double down on one business and really take it to the next level. So that's how we ended up selling that business.
So for those who are tuning in right now, ladies and gentlemen, we have Tesh all the way calling in from Nairobi here, just telling us about his journey. His recently acquired business called Cloud9 was acquired by Hotels Online, and now he's got a new business called Marketforce 360, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Tesh, you talked about this partner that you've been working with throughout this time period, right? How did you find this partner, and how did you know that this is the person that you wanted to build these technology businesses with?
Interesting story. So actually we were like, this is very interesting because Mesongo was like the smartest guy in the room, and I was like the guy who's missing all the classes. So I'd come into class, and this is a smart guy that sits in the back, and I would also sit like in the back bench, and we happened to sit next to each other. And I'd always be asking like, yo, what are assignments we have, like, can we meet after class and you can help me out with this? Like, I didn't hear anything in class, So that's how we actually started interacting, and we became boys. And yeah, so we ended up starting the businesses together.
And so there are people probably in the audience here who are listening, who are thinking of maybe like a technology company they would like to start, and might be thinking about, okay, how do I find this? Maybe they're not technical. How do I find a technical co-founder? Do you have any advice or feedback for them on any suggestions that you would recommend them looking into?
Yeah, so interesting story is of how there's a platform called cofounder.com, I think. And the acquirers of our previous business, we met on that platform. So literally like one of the things we're looking for, so we're looking for like an operator for our previous business. So signed up to co-founder, just like to try it out. Like, can you actually find a co-founder on this platform? And this guy hit me up, and because I wrote like interested in travel tech. And that was, I think, my bio on that platform. And this guy actually hit me up. I got an email, I guess, a few weeks later. And like, I was like, okay, this thing actually works. And we met up for coffee in Nairobi, and we became friends. And he told me about how they're running this hotel business, and they get so many guests booking for hotels, but he's always been looking for a partner to work with who can provide experiences. So sort of do an integration between the platforms. And when it got to time for them to set up like a B2C channel, they talked to us about acquiring us. So
and these are the hotel online co-founders,
yes,
right?
This is
so you met them through this co-founder's website. Like, that's how you met them.
Yeah. And
that's really
I'm sure
cool.
you've heard of Uber Kalanik's story as well. Like, he literally just tweeted like looking for a tech. I don't think there's a formula, but like you just put one out there, I think, and that's why like you shouldn't be afraid of putting one out there about what you're looking for. And I like how active you are on Twitter, because I mean, you never know who you could meet online. But for me and Mesongo, I think we're just in the right place at the right time.
So your advice is like, check out cofounder.com, try to put your name out there with the things that you're interested in, whether it's on Twitter or different social media platforms, and try to have those conversations and see what that leads to. I think that's great. So Tesh, across these different businesses, you've had to make many tough decisions. What do you think was probably one of the toughest decisions you had to make in your career so far?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. There's so many hard decisions you make as an entrepreneur.
I bet.
But one of them, I think, is I think Africans are afraid of letting businesses die. Like, we literally flog dead horses. I've seen entrepreneurs now today who I met probably like 6 years ago, who are still trying to build the same thing. And I think there's a really thin line between like persistence and knowing the right time to move on. So one thing that my co-founder and I did is our businesses have been largely bootstrapped until we raised our funding for Marketforce. And one thing we did, we had two failed startups. And I think some of the hardest decisions we had to make were actually closing down those companies after putting in a lot of sweat and the little cash we were making out of consulting. But just letting businesses die, I think, has been one of the hardest things we've done, but they've proven to be the best decisions we've made so far.
I watched something where you've had over 100 conversations with over 76 potential investors to raise your round. Having gained some traction, at what point do you start considering looking at Silicon Valley investors? And when did that transition start?
Yes, so I think for anyone who's tried to raise funding in this market, you realize that it's very challenging, especially like for pre-seed and seed capital. And so for us, our first checks actually came in from local angel investors. And I think the reason that happened is because we had some traction, we had customers. So we looked like sort of like a traditional business in the start. And when we knew we're ready to take this to the next level is when we went all out. But to be honest, YC also really gave us a lot of exposure to like Silicon Valley investors. Otherwise, we're talking to a lot of African VCs before that.
Let's go into that. So we're going to take a transition here into Y Combinator. So for those, just for context to lay it down for everybody, Tesh, you were in winter 2021 or summer 2021? I think summer, right?
Yeah, summer 2020.
Okay, so every year, for context for everybody, every year Y Combinator, it's an accelerated program based out of the Valley, brings in companies from all across the globe. It's a really hard program to get into. Over 12,000 people apply. They have a 1.5% acceptance rate. So take about 200 companies, just under that, every year. And within East Africa, there are only 4 or 5 companies that have been selected for this program. And Tesh, we have here on us, is one of those 4 or 5 companies. There's 2 from Tanzania, 3 or 4 from Kenya. So maybe I think there's 6 companies now. But overall, it is really hard to get into because they're extremely selective when they're picking the companies to get into. Tesh, talk to us about your Y Combinator journey. Obviously, when you're putting the application, it's like, okay, cool, we'll put it in. We don't know if we'll get in. We don't know if, we won't. There are probably people listening to you right now who are thinking of applying to Y Combinator. What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, so actually written an article around this, and primarily, I think there's 3 or 4 pieces of advice that I give in this article. And I think the far most important one is really being concise in your message. So any investor is looking at a couple of things. So is the opportunity big enough, like the total addressable market? Why you? Do you have the right team? So probably not have a solo founder. Do you have like a technical co-founder? This is something you talked about earlier. And then there's also, entrepreneurs normally get stuck up on this really cool idea, but at the end of the day, it's not about having a cool idea. It's about, does it make economic sense, and tying it up to what value are you bringing to the community. And I think for Y Combinator, the thing about being concise is you have like 10 minutes, an interview for 10 minutes with really smart guys, and you need to pass all these points across really fast and concisely. I think that would be my top advice. If possible, talk to guys who've been through it. So do like mock interviews, because they'd really help and guide you. In our case, we went in for an interview in the winter 2020. That's a batch before us. And we didn't hack it. We got to the interview stage, we didn't hack it, but we kept trying. So that's another thing, like just keep trying. A lot of entrepreneurs are taking either the second or third time they apply, according to the stats. So that's the other thing. Keep improving.
So don't get discouraged, even get in. And we just shared the article in the Zoom chat for everybody who is tuning in right now that you wrote.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Y Combinator experience. So Y Combinator this year was remote, so it was a little bit different. And so how was that for you? What was the most valuable thing about being part of the program? And then we also have a question from the audience about YC that I'll pull up here.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for me is how much call it inspiration you get from being like a small fish in a big pond. You know, like being out of East Africa, you've raised your seed round and you're already like less than 1% of the entrepreneurs who've managed to raise even this seed round of funding. So you're sort of like a big fish in a small pond. And that it's not the best effect. I prefer to be in a situation where like I'm really challenged to grow. And if you look at the caliber and level of YC companies and the founders you interact with week on week during the 3-month program, like it really inspires you and challenges you to do more. So I think I'd say that was probably the most intense 3 months of my entrepreneurial journey, because you've been through it. You understand how much like you're pushed to deliver results like every 2 weeks, every week actually.
Literally every week.
Literally every week, and it's really good pressure, because I think you're able to accomplish so much amount of important work in such a short period of time. For us guys, we even innovated a new business model, which we were always thinking about, but we just didn't get to do it. And we're able to do it through YC. So all this is besides, of course, the network that creates, just being among really smart and driven entrepreneurs and learning from each other.
So what do you believe in this idea, Tesh, about, entrepreneurs coming together and discussing their issues? Like, what that's a big piece of Y Combinator. So for context for everybody, what Tesh was describing is every week or every other week, the founders within your group, you guys, you all would meet up together and then, hey, what are you building? What's your status? What's your biggest blocker? What do you need the biggest help with? We'd go around in a circle. Do you think that was helpful to you? And do you think that do you hope or see that being something big in Africa and something that we should be doing more often out here?
Yeah, for sure. I think actually like that's one of the top, like peer-to-peer mentorship, sharing, because the thing is we go through so much. And what I love about YC is you're able to share everything. Guys shared like their top successes as well as their top failures and their biggest mistakes, their biggest learning points, their biggest growth hacks. And it's like sort of an information overload that's like really valuable, because it's like putting together so many people going through a similar journey. So you're able to, I'll call it like time collapse, because the stuff you'd be able to learn over 1 year by yourself, you're able to learn like over 2-3 months, just learning from each other's experiences. It's invaluable.
We have a question here from Kyle. Kyle was asking, tell us about the Y Combinator demo day experience.
Whoa, that was nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a funny story. My son was born on demo day, and I was meant to be pitching. So my co-founder had to pitch, because yeah, it was crazy. Yeah. Like the night before I had to pitch, I had to go to the hospital, and I had always said that I have to be there for my son's birth. So I called up my co-founder. It was really nerve-wracking, like the week towards demo day, because you're trying to ramp up your numbers, just make sure everything is fresh, because you're pitching to like 2,000 investors.
Right.
But yeah, so lucky enough, he got on it and he killed it. So
wow.
But it is nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I know you've been through the experience. I think that's the one word to describe it.
Yeah. What would you say are so moving on from there, right? You said Y Combinator also helped you build these relationships with the investors, or build this trust investors in Silicon Valley. Do you think if an African startup does not have access to YC, how might they get access to Silicon Valley?
Wow. So I think so one thing is these things take time. As I've been a tech entrepreneur for how many years now? Like over 5 years. And I'd say I just sort of broke into the Silicon Valley community last year. So mostly by virtue of being in YC. But I think it's all about persistence and putting yourself out there, talking to the right people. Besides YC, there are other programs like 500 Startups and TechCrunch, and there are like numerous tens of other accelerators, incubation programs, which we shouldn't be afraid to apply for, because it's all about just shooting as many shots as you can. And as an entrepreneur, you shouldn't be afraid of getting those no's, because you'll get so many from investors, so many from customers, so many from like everybody, So so it's all about like shooting those shots and keep improving till you get what you want. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to transition a little bit over to your business, right? So we have a question from the audience here saying, sales management among SMEs in Africa is very new. What approach makes them, meaning Marketforce 360, believe it will be adoptable?
Yeah, so it is pretty new, but I think one of the things we need to realize as entrepreneurs is that in most cases, we're always building an alternative to something that existed. So in the case of sales management, like field sales agents would use pen and paper, or would use like WhatsApp groups, or you'd use like Excel sheets. So it's a question of understanding what currently exists and figuring out how best to communicate to this community of potential users why what you're presenting is better. So I think that'll be the short answer to that.
And can you like you recently launched this new product called Regia. What does Regia do? And actually, there's a question that just came in from the audience from Daniel. What was the pain point in the market that made you release a new product called Regia?
Yeah, so the two reasons why we released this product. One is we realized our customer, and this is part of just keep learning and iterating. We learned that one of the things our current customers really valued is data from the last mile. And what I mean by the last mile is, so I'll give you an example of Coca-Cola. What happens is these guys have distributors who sell Coke. I'm sure you see the tuk-tuks and the vans who sell product to either retail shops or like key accounts who are like supermarkets. And what happens is Coca-Cola only has relationship with the distributor. They do not know where the product goes. So we launched Regia to create a platform where we're able to gather data directly from retail level, because these guys are able to order directly. So I know in Dar es Salaam, there are 300,000 shops, dukas, who are purchasing my product, and I know where they are. And this enables me to really be able to target my promotional activities, to understand the product. I can know Fanta is really selling well in this region, and I can have this visibility in real time. So that was one push. And the second push was we realized we could add value to the last mile, which is still the retailers, because a lot of these brands rely on retailers to get the product to the final consumer. And we realized that these retailers have a lot of downtime. So this was just observation driven. They face a lot of challenges in being able to access goods fast and at the right price. So they do not have transparency on who are the best distributors around me, where I can get the best price. And these guys also normally need to like close their shop to go out and get stock. Otherwise, they run out of stock and they cannot sell. So Regia was built to solve some of these challenges that we observed while operating in the retail distribution sector.
Across the sector, there's so many problems, right? And going into this year, I know we were catching up a couple of days ago, and you said, "Hey, we're looking to focus on a couple of things and do them extremely well." There are probably potential even customers that are listening to you on this call. What ways do you think you could help their businesses in terms of the goals that you have for 2021?
Yeah, so first of all, any business, one of our biggest aims for 2021 is to enable any business that has a field sales team. And this is really typical in sales intensive industries. So like FMCG, if you're a manufacturer or distributor, if you sell financial services, in Africa, if I'm selling insurance, I have like teams of sales agents on the ground.
Well,
So
hold on. If you're selling insurance, it's really hard because your competition is like Jesus. So it's really tough. Respect if you're selling insurance and I'm
Jesus.
Keep going.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, so the competition, but insurance companies, they do really well, and these guys have so many agents out there, and that's one of our biggest customer base actually. These agents will be able to create an account on Marketforce and use our app to record all the customer information that they get. And traditionally, I know like you've seen a sales agent come to you, sell you insurance, and tell you, "I'll send you a quotation tomorrow." So, for example, one of the things you're able to do with our app is this guy is able to give you quotation in real time, just keep communicating with you. And this adds a lot of value to any sales intensive business. So anyone who's has sales agents out there, you can use Marketforce.
Cool. So anybody listening, if y'all have sales agents across the platform or work at an organization, whether it's a large FMCG or, whether like I know a lot of drink companies are pretty big with this. And so, yeah, definitely hit Tesh up after this to see if there's something we can use with technology to re-enable that. Just going to give a call out to the audience. I know we're getting towards the end of the session here. So if you have any final questions, feel free to drop them in the chat as well. We'll pull them from there. We do have a question here from the audience, Tesh. It says, "What was the worst or most disappointing project that you ever engaged in, and what did it teach you?"
Yeah, so one of our startups that failed was a procurement automation tool. So you guys from Kenya, I'm sure you like, or Tanzania, you can relate to the issue with corruption. So we created a platform that was creating transparency in the procurement and tendering process. So because we were thinking like during our tender application, you have to fill in so much documentation and deliver it to the office. We're thinking, why can't you just create a profile online, put all your information, and this guy who's looking for suppliers just gets all these bids and is able to really evaluate them without having to set up like, what do? They set up like a meeting in a hotel and they go through all these bunches of paper. I mean, you can do this through a very simple platform. So we spent months building this thing and we couldn't sell it. Like we literally visited like tens of companies trying to sell. And we realized that the reason these guys were not adopting the solution is that they don't want transparency in the procurement process because of the corruption. So the biggest lesson we learned for this is obvious. You can have a really fantastic idea on paper, but in the real world, it's literally shit. Like it's nothing. So that was big, and I think we didn't drag it for too long. We're lucky. I think we quit after a year or so.
That's not Benji just looking pensive, Tesh. That's another power cut.
I was wondering what's going on. All right.
Cool. Yeah, I will. Yeah, so that was. Thank you for that question, Kyle. And yeah, just reflections on disappointing projects or failures in the past. So yeah, just a couple more questions from us and from the audience as well. Let me just open this up here. So first one is going back to Regia, and talking about, this is from Daniel as well. And he was interested to find out, who's the end user for Regia, Is it CEOs? And is the end user of the analytics sophisticated enough to understand them? So are they digestible? Are they easy to understand for the end user?
Yeah, so Regia is primarily an application. It's a mobile app for shop owners. So what we're doing is enabling this guy with a smartphone in his shop to be able to find out, like to restock his shop. So he can go, it's an e-commerce platform, but targeted, like it's a business to business e-commerce platform. So the same way you go on Jumia or Amazon and order your stuff, we allow a retailer to order for stock for his shop. Yeah, so that's the end user. And in some cases, they're not as sophisticated enough or like owning smartphones to be able to do that. So what we couple that up with is team of virtual, like sales agents in communities who visit these retailers and use our app to take orders on their behalf, and then we make the deliveries.
Awesome, thank you. Cool. So we're going to shift things on a little bit from your business to your life experiences. And first, so some people may already know this. And going back to the Cloud9 era, you pitched and secured investment in Lion's Den for around $73,000. What was the experience like? Quite different to pitching to YC. What was the experience like pitching in front of cameras? What was that general experience like for you overall?
Yeah, so if you're not like, like a master MC, then in most cases, like speaking in public, and in this case, in front of cameras is always a nerve-wracking experience. But I mean, one of the things you get to do or get to learn as an entrepreneur is you need to go out of your comfort zone, because go the extra mile, because you have to do that to get the best things that entrepreneurship has to offer. So that's one thing that I learned from that experience. And second is like it was amazing free PR because, because you should have seen like our website traffic on that night when we aired on TV. Like we had 50 times. I can't remember the exact numbers because it's like 3 years back, but our website traffic literally like went like this.
Yeah.
So over the next 3 days and over time, I think that episode has gathered like thousands of views. I can't remember, but you can imagine how much PR that is, free PR that is. Yes. So when you get an opportunity for free marketing, like just jump with it.
Big time.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. When people are paying for advertising, millions for advertising, you guys got a prime slot and a prime show, like who's gonna turn that down?
Like
right?
literally we were the last episode of this show, and it was airing right before prime news, right before 9 p.m. So even guys who don't watch the show are just switching on the channel to to be in time for prime news. So like 3 minutes of prime time. It was awesome.
Perfectly timed. Yeah. Amazing. And yeah, you've taken some pretty some pretty amazing trips around the world to a lot of different countries, and travel in itself it enriches, it changes your perspectives, it adds to your perspectives and views on the world. And I wondered how that was for you. What has being able to see different parts of the world, being able to spend time with people from different nationalities and meet and connect in many different places, what has that added to your perspectives and your view, your world views?
Yeah, great question. And I love travel, and I think the biggest reason I love travel is the exposure you get. And I'll go back to the alluding to like being a small fish in a big pond. Anytime you travel, like this, an example is this time we went to Alibaba headquarters in China, and like I was mind blown by the business models and how efficient things were. So it just opened my mind up to how efficient things can be. And given China was not like, wasn't really far from where we are, probably a decade or two ago. And when you're trying to build products or build businesses that will make Africa a better place, like build our Africa, that exposure just shows you that all this stuff is possible. So exposure to these business models specifically has been really amazing for me. Yeah.
I'm sure it's almost like a bit of a crystal ball when you visit some countries and you see, where they're at with certain things, and you're like, we're at the beginning of this. We're at the summit right now. I can see where this is going. I can see it's possible, which must be, super inspirational.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, thank you, Tesh. That is pretty much all we've got time for. But before we wrap up, where is the best place for people to find out a little bit more about Marketforce, but also a little bit more, about you? I know you have a blog and you're really active on social. So where's the best place for people to follow along and find out more?
Yeah, so I just posted a link to our website, which is marketforce360.com. There's information about our products and the inspiration around the idea. You can also follow myself, Tesh Mbaabu on Twitter, LinkedIn. So you can find all the information there at Marketforce360 as well on Twitter. So
amazing. Thank you. That's brilliant. And actually, so you have probably time to squeeze this. I promised to squeeze as many questions as we could in. So I'm just going to try and get this one in now as well. This is from Winnie, and she asked about, you mentioned closing down some businesses and also this balance between perseverance and, knowing when to stop. And, what time did you and your business partner realize that when the right time was to sort of wrap things up and maybe start a new chapter?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think this is more of an art than a science. So there's what I think one is being like data driven. So you set out these KPIs and you're sort of like trying all the possible ways to iterate your business to make it work. And you seem to hit a wall with every idea you try out. So that's one thing. In terms of, for example, it's a B2C business, you're trying different marketing techniques, you're studying on them, you're talking to other B2C players to find out what worked for them, and you're trying all these things and they're not working. Because at the end of the day, sales is king. If you're not able to sell and it's month 1, month 2, or you're not selling enough to sustain your business, or you're trying to fundraise and it seems like, it's one thing to talk to 50 investors and get 5 yeses. It's another to talk to 100 investors and get 0 yeses.
Yeah.
So, and there's all these indicators, all these guys are telling you like, this didn't work, you like have 0 believers in customers, you have 0 believers in investors. I think that will probably be a good signal, but it's more of an art than a science.
Yeah.
I think also your gut, man, like you wake up one day and you're like, damn, this is it,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It counts for a lot, that gut feeling, that instinct, doesn't it?
Yeah,
sure. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Tesh. I really, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you to everyone who joined this evening. We hope you've enjoyed it.